everyone, my name is Noor and I'm an anthropologist. I work at the Forensic Science Lab, and what I do for anthropology is I study the remains of dead humans and dead animals, and it helps me establish the identity of them. It helps me determine the race, the gender, the cause of death, and other things like that. Okay, so as you guys can see, I have a bunch of different fake human bones. They're all skulls. And so in each one, you can determine the race and the gender by all of the different characteristics. So in this one, you can tell this is a Mongoloid male because Mongoloid males have a long nasal cavity, and then this comes off. And then they also have rounded eye orbits. So as you can see, that's how you determine what kind of race it is. See the next set of skull that I have. Okay, so this one is going to be a Caucasoid female. And as you can see in this one, the nasal cavities are a lot longer, and then the eye orbits are more oval shaped, so that kind of just proves that it's a Caucasoid rather than Mongoloid or Negroid. It's kind of hard to tell the differences, but this one's Caucasoid. And then we have the last race over here is going to be the Negroid. And this one, you can see that the nasal cavities are a lot wider and they go out more. And then you can see that the eye orbits are more like a square kind of figure, and that's how you can determine the Negroid race. Okay, here we have an example of a real animal bone. If you can see, this one has a lot more details in the bones, and compared to a real skeletal bone, it is a big difference in the texture of it. This one's going to be a lot smoother, and if you actually hear it, you can kind of tell that it's plastic. But then if you look at this one, it has a lot more lines and it's a lot more rigidity and it's rougher, and then once you tap it, it feels a lot more like rock, and then it leaves dried bone marrow actually. So that's how you can tell the difference between a fake and a real bone. Okay, so moving on, we're going to be talking about the pelvic structures and how you can tell if the gender of the person was a male or female based off of that. So this one that I'm holding right here is going to be a male. The differences is going to be that with the males, this part of the bone, so the sacrum, is going to go in more, and that prevents them from being able to push out a baby, and so that's how you can kind of tell that it's a male. And then also the hip bones and this part of the waist is going to be much smaller and a lot narrower, and that's going to be the biggest differentiation. And if you come over here, I have an example of a female, and you can tell that this part is a lot wider, so it's big enough to push a whole baby through it, and then the hip bones are also going to be much bigger this way. So this is going to be wrapping up the video. Overall today we've talked about the pelvic bones, the male and the female, how to differentiate the two. We also talked about the skull. With the skull you can determine if they're Mongoloid, Caucasoid, or Negroid, so that's a big part of determining their race. And then we also talked about the real animal bones, the different type of structure, how you can tell that it's more rigid and coming from a real animal. So I hope you guys learned something about bones, and thank you for listening.